Welcome to the Vietnamese Poetry, Literature channel. Today we will listen to the work, An Anger, by author Thach Lam. Let's listen. One winter evening we sat in front of the fireplace in a warm room. Naturally in the story, a person talks about natural anger that fills our souls and sometimes causes many bad results. Then everyone expressed their own opinion. Mr. Tan, who had been quiet and thoughtful up until now, spoke up. Anger can make us do small, unexpected things. I know better than anyone, because I experienced it myself. I will tell you a story that is still imprinted in my memory. On a winter afternoon like today, I left the newspaper office, feeling depressed and sad. There are days when we don't understand why, we feel uncomfortable, grumpy, and don't want to do anything. I was on such a day, and the gloomy and cold afternoon that day made that feeling even more evident. I walked a few steps on the deserted street. A handcart was moving far and wide, the driver was shivering in the cold, his hands hidden under his tattered shirt. As usual, I bargained. "Is the car going?" 4 cents came near Yen Fu's cowhouse. "I'll give you 6 cents. "No, 4 cents is the right price," I said as I walked away. The old cartman kept pulling the cart behind me and muttering, "4 coins from here to the barn." The cow sound he repeated over and over made me uncomfortable. I know that's a way for drivers to keep following customers to make people angry. I hate it even more and turn around and say, "It's up to you whether you go or not. Don't follow behind people and talk nonsense." Seeing my anger, the driver stopped, not daring to follow anymore. But after letting me go a little distance, he called out, "Come here." Then he lowered the fork of the bike and just stood there waiting without pulling it towards me. That gesture made me hate it even more, and I thought about not going, but at that time there was no other car. I angrily stepped into the car and scolded. "You're so talkative, you don't leave right away but you're still drawing." The driver argued. "From here to there, the teacher gives me 4 coins, which is really cheap." "Who told you to go?" "If not, I called another car." The driver sighed softly and quietly lifted the cart up. At that time, I leaned back, but felt the cushion as hard as wood hitting my back, so I bent down to the side to look at the handlebars. I guessed right, it was a pig car with a brand name that was worthy of being considered a hidden car in the suburbs, but I still had to drive. This driver came here to steal, because suburban vehicles are not allowed to enter the city to pick up passengers. If they do not obey the order, they will be fined 3 to 4 silver coins. The shabbiness of the car made me hate the driver even more. This car is so miserable and yet you still ask for a high price. If you criticize the car like that, what else can you do? The stubborn driver also refused to be outdone. Whatever I said, he responded immediately. Finally, I was so angry that I stomped my foot on the floor of the car and shouted, "Okay, shut up, stop talking." Anger made me forget that the driver only responded to my scoldings, and it was because I was angry at him too much. But at that time, I only felt extremely angry with that driver, because he dared to argue with me without fear. The car left the water plant and met a person wearing a white shirt riding a bicycle, followed by a person wearing a white shirt. I noticed that the driver pulling me was confused and scared. Maybe that's why the policeman paid attention and went close to the trailer to see the signs. "Hey! Stop!" The rickshaw puller stopped. He turned around and begged me impatiently. "Teacher, please tell me, please." Under the light, I saw the driver's face turn pale. The scars were deeply imprinted on the haggard old face, the wretched man's limbs trembled and I saw the vibration transfer to the body of the car. The Western policeman came and said in a slightly broken language, "You will die. You will be punished." The driver faltered, then he waved his hand to tell me to be quiet, then turned back to me and asked, this time in French, "Did this person pull you out from the street or did you go round trip?" I glanced at the guy pulling the cart. In the darkness of the brim of his hat across his face, I saw his eyes glittering at me, as if pleading for silence. I knew whether my words would get him arrested or not. When talking with other bus drivers, I learned that if the passenger said he was going round trip from the suburbs, then the bus driver had nothing to do. But at that time, the other driver's plea did not move my heart, but instead made me hate him more. I replied to the team leader. I went from Hang Bun Street. Then please get out of the car. Then he looked at the driver and smiled mischievously. Allez. Go back to the beach. When the driver trembled in fear and the two policemen disappeared down the street, I turned and walked leisurely down the sidewalk. My anger is gone. Regret gradually seeped into my heart. I felt a feeling of frustration and anger vibrate within me. I trembled thinking about the fate of that wretched driver. 3 silver coins fine. He had to borrow money from the driver to pay the fine, but when will he pay back those 3 silver coins, after days of fasting and being tortured and beaten by the bus driver out of hatred? The more I think about it, the more I despise myself. Passing through Yanfu Square, seeing the busy workers working under the lights in the shabby thatched houses, I walked quickly, as if seeing me they would know my wretched and pitiful behavior. Me earlier. The following days were truly miserable days for me. Regret won't leave me alone. It seemed like there was something heavy pressing down on my chest, making it difficult to breathe, and the image of the driver always appeared before my eyes. I decided to bring money to the other driver to atone for my sins. Going to Hang Bot Street and asking people around the car factory, I learned that the driver who was fined that night was named Du, and lived in a block past Comtheen intersection. That time was the first time I stepped into such a poor, miserable place. Try to imagine a row of shabby and low houses, ramshackle on the shore of a lagoon with black and smelly water pouring into the house steps. In that dark, dirty cave, people lived a wretched life, skinny and ragged like people in a coma. The carriage driver Du is in there. A skinny old woman sitting on the sidewalk biting lice showed me a low door at the front of the house. I crouched down to enter, only to see darkness as if I was covering my eyes and feel the cold dampness seeping into me. A woman's voice softly asked, "What do you want, teacher?" When my eyes got used to the darkness, I noticed the woman who had asked, an old woman at the edge of a rotten bamboo bed against the wall. Behind this woman, another woman sat holding something slightly moving in her lap. They both looked up at me in surprise and their heads touched the low roof, full of tattered rags hanging on the beams. "Is Uncle Du home?" "Bam, his uncle went back to the countryside the other day." A flash of fear on their faces was enough to tell me they weren't telling the truth, so I explained. "No, just tell me the truth. I came to help him, nothing else." The old lady looked at me and thought for a moment, then said, "So did you know that his uncle was arrested the other day?" I nodded to signal the old lady to continue speaking. That day the driver had to bring money to pay the fine to redeem the car. His uncle begged the governor to pay the money in installments. But he definitely wouldn't listen and forced him to pay half immediately. Damn it, where can I get it to pay? So he stripped him of his clothes and beat him to death. When I got here, I couldn't walk anymore. Yet it still requires tomorrow to pay immediately. The woman sitting inside spoke in a sickly voice. He also said that if he doesn't pay, he will take the card. So where is he now? The old lady replied. Left that day, without knowing where to go. We've been searching for 3 days now but haven't found it. Probably because he was afraid that he wouldn't dare come back anymore. Even if he did come back without money, he would die with him. It's really a shame. I heard his uncle say that day it was because the passenger in the car didn't know how to tell the driver that he was arrested, otherwise it wouldn't have been anything. I was quiet, my heart was excited. The old lady smacked her lips and pointed to the woman sitting behind. I feel sorry for your wife and children. They have been sick for several days without any medicine. I don't know if my grandchild will survive. I stood closer to watch. In the mother's arm, there was only a lump of wrinkled baby flesh. The baby gasped for air, his face pale. The mother occasionally dipped a chicken feather into the bowl of honey next to it and spread it on the baby's tongue. I've been using it for more than a month now. The other day it got better. These days, because I don't have money to buy medicine, the price has increased again. The doctor said it would be difficult for me to survive. After speaking, the mother let out a sob and sobbed. The old woman crawled closer, bent down and gently pulled back the tattered diapers like loofahs. That painful scene brought tears to my eyes. A choking feeling rose up to block my throat. I took a $5 bill and gave it to the mother, then quickly walked out the door, leaving the two people looking suspiciously. Through the doorway, I bumped into a sick man carrying a new wooden coffin. Coming to the side of the road, I heard the cries of two women in a shabby house. The baby is dead. Mr. Ton was silent for a moment as if thinking, then continued. That sad memory continues to haunt me until now, as clear as the events that happened yesterday. That reminds me that people can be cruel easily. And every time I think of that suburban truck driver, I feel pain in my heart, like there's a wound that hasn't healed. At the end of the work, please support me with the like button and subscribe to the channel to listen to more works.